8 months into retirement, he was living his best life. Winter in Florida, morning coffee with his wife, stress-free and smiling. And then one morning, he didn't wake up. No warning, no lingering illness, just gone. It's a story I wish I didn't have to tell, but it's one that every soon-to-be retiree should hear. So in today's episode, I want to explore the phenomenon that's rarely talked about in financial circles, but something you've probably recognized or seen in your life: sudden death shortly after retirement. Unfortunately, we had a client who passed away just months after finally stepping away from demanding high-pressure sales role that was very reliant on him. He was happy, healthy, and as far as anyone knew, everything was all good, but then everything stopped. So we're going to ask, is this a known phenomenon or a tragic one-off? What does the research actually say about health mortality after retirement? And most importantly, what can you take away from this? Not just financially, but emotionally, mentally, physically, to set yourself up for retirement that's not only long-lasting, but deeply fulfilling. So this isn't going to be a doom and gloom episode, but it will be real, because sometimes what we need most isn't another strategy, but it's a wake-up call. So I have a few points I want to touch on here today. The first point is no, retirement itself is not a death sentence. So let's get that out of the way. The data doesn't support the idea that retirement automatically leads to early death. In fact, studies show that retiring can actually improve health for many people. So lower stress, more sleep, better habits, these are all good things, right? But there is a catch. Those benefits depend a lot on how you retire and what kind of life you step into afterwards. Number two, a sudden change can be just destabilizing. So you've been in the driver's seat for decades, in charge, you're busy, you're needed, and then one day that structure just disappears, right? So for some people, especially a lot of men, we see this, who closely tie their identity to their work. And I should be clear here, it's not just men, we do see that more often. So those who closely tie their identity to work, retirement can leave a psychological vacuum, right? There's no meetings, there's no title, there's no sense of being indispensable. In fact, now you might be at home getting in the way and feel the opposite of needed, right? So it's not the lack of work that causes any issues. It's the lack or the loss of purpose. So Viktor Frankl talked about this decades ago. We need a why to keep going. And when that disappears, both mental and physical health can suffer. And so for anyone who hasn't read it, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, I love that book. I've recommended it many times, highly recommend it to you, especially if you're starting to think about, what does retirement look like? How am I going to find my purpose? Right? So I highly recommend that book. Anyway, number three, chronic stress may leave hidden damage. So even if you're thrilled to retire, your body might be recovering from years, even decades of chronic stress, right? So the science calls this allostatic load. I think I'm saying that right. So it's the wear and tear in your systems from constant pressure, right? So here's where it gets a bit tricky. Sometimes when that stress finally disappears, the body just lets go. Blood pressure drops, hormones shift, issues surface. So it's a phenomenon some researchers call letdown syndrome. And while it's not fully understood, it could help explain stories like our clients. Number four, relaxing is good, but just not if it means disconnecting or not being active or all those other important things. So some retirees jump straight into relaxation mode. And, at first that may seem great, but too much of it, especially if you don't have purpose, you're not getting exercise, and you're not connected, can be dangerous. So it's kind of like, putting a car in the garage after a long road trip and then just never starting it again, right? The rust sets in maybe a little faster than you think. So purpose, movement, connection, these are the ingredients of a healthy retirement. Now, what can you do differently? So if you are planning to retire in the next few years, or you're already retired, this episode isn't about fear, all right? It's about being intentional. So here's what we recommend. Don't fall off a cliff. If possible, just ease in, right? So if you can, and I know this is not an option for everybody, but try semi-retirement first. Drop to 3 or 4 days a week. Take extended vacations, maybe some time down south. Start building that next chapter before you fully close the book on work. Now, like I said, I know not everybody has the option to just start easing down from 5 to 4 to 3 to 2 days and so on. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't start building that next chapter and thinking about what you're going to be doing, how you're spending your time, how you're getting social connections, staying active, all these things for when you do retire, right? Number 2, build a new purpose, not just a financial plan. Okay. So financial planning, it's essential, right? Obviously, I think that it's a big part of the show here, but life planning is also just as important, right? So what's going to get you out of bed every morning? What's going to keep your brain active, your heart engaged, right? So volunteering, coaching, writing, learning, mentoring, teaching your grandkids how to fish, it all counts, but we want to be intentional about it and make sure that you have that purpose. Okay. Number 3, check the hidden health risks. If your career was high stress, you may want to proactively work with your doctor to screen for things like stroke risks, cardiac issues, or other stress-related health problems, right? Don't assume that feeling good equals no risk. If you've been in a high-stress job for a long time, there could be a lot of chronic stress and issues built up from that. And number 4, talk about the emotional side of retirement. I find that a lot of the meetings we have with clients, they're not all focused on money, or maybe only parts of the meetings are focused on money. A lot of it is talking about the more emotional side or the intangible side of retirement. And it's important. And this is especially important for couples, right? So retirement is going to change your routines, changes your space, your roles in the house. So you want to start having those conversations with your spouse before you retire and before it becomes an issue, right? Not after the fact. Okay. So look, at the end of the day, we don't really control how long we get here, but we can influence the quality of the years we do have left, and we can increase the odds of making them last, right? So if you're nearing retirement or you're in retirement, here's my message today. Don't wait until the day you retire to start thinking about what life is going to look like after you retire. All right. The sooner you start building that post-retirement identity and start building for that next chapter, the better equipped you'll be. So mentally, physically, emotionally, are you going to be ready for that next chapter? And just remember that retirement is not a finish line. It's just the beginning of a new race. So prepare for it, train for it, right? So again, the 3 things that you really want to make sure you're doing is, how are you staying physically active? What are you doing for exercise? How are you staying connected? How are you getting out and seeing friends now that you're not with your coworkers every day? Right? It's a really important aspect as you age into retirement, and finding purpose. So what are you going to be doing? What's going to be getting you out of bed in the morning, right? And this might change and adapt over time for you. It might be different when you start retirement and later in retirement, and that's okay. But again, you want to have routines. You want something that's going to get you out of bed in the morning. All right. Take care, and we'll talk to you guys next week.